So I find that women get very confused about what their role is with money, right? So with 3.5% down, you could get an FHA mortgage. So yes, you can purchase a home. You don't have to have perfect credit. You don't even have to have really healthy tax returns. I've got other programs where we use the deposits going into your bank in lieu of a tax return. So there are some alternative, solutions for people who don't have everything set up, perfectly, so to speak. And, it's a great time for us to potentially brainstorm on how we're going to set you up for success next year. And the roof over your family's head is also a retirement asset. So I will never stop in that journey of trying to shed light on other people and helping them believe in the power of possibilities.
Welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman. Today, again, we have an incredible guest, Laura Moritz, and we are going to speak about home ownership and mortgages. Welcome, Laura. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure, Sarah.
Laura, I'm going to introduce you to the listeners. You have built an amazing 500 million mortgage carrier as a senior loan originator at Classic Mortgage. Growing up in a real estate family, you learned the ins and outs of the industry from a young age. Over the past 35 years, you have helped thousands of clients navigate both traditional and reverse mortgages. Your deep expertise, extensive resources, and commitment to excellence have made you a trusted advisor in every transaction. You consistently go above and beyond to exceed expectation and make complex financial processes clear. Licensed in New York, New Jersey, and Florida, you serve clients across some of the most dynamic real estate markets in the country. And once again, I want to welcome you.
I really appreciate the introduction. Thanks, Sarah.
Well, Laura, I can wait to get to know you more. Can you tell us more about your story, who you are, who is the woman behind the title?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I would love to tell you a little bit more. So I'm a licensed mortgage banker, but that's not really who I am. It's what I do. It's a very big part of what I do and who I am. But I think the underlying personality traits that make me really good at what I am is that I am a leader and a person, first and foremost, with a huge heart that's committed to help people. So I got in this industry, as you said in your introduction, a really long time ago. And my mom was a realtor. So I've been in this industry forever, really my whole life. And so what I bring to the table isn't just surface scratching and me just quote unquote doing my job. I really give myself to all my clients and in everything I do.
Oh, that's beautiful. And where did you grow up? Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Rockland County. My mom used to sell Avon, and that was, beauty products. Used to go door to door and knock on the door. And one day she came home and she said, I think I could make more selling houses than lipstick. So she was one of the premier Century 21 agents. She came home with a really tacky gold polyester jacket on. And next thing you know, she was out closing her first transaction. So I learned from the best, so to speak. And I like to say that I have title in my blood.
That's incredible. Did you always know you wanted to follow her path?
I did and I didn't. So this is actually a funny story. In high school, we had guidance counselors and they tried to get you on the career path for college. And I remember the counselor called me in and said, Laura, what do you want to do? And I'm always like on to the next thing. I have kind of like that type A personality where I'm always driving and multitasking and such. So I looked at the list and the first thing, accountant, I said, I'll be that. I just checked that. And the guidance counselor said, perfect. And I went back to class. In hindsight, the fact that nobody questioned that with my people skills, I wanted to be a pencil pusher, but nobody did. So I went to Quinnipiac University where I graduated with my degree in accounting. And I got my first job in accounting in a mortgage company. And from there, the rest was history. The owner of the mortgage company said, I love what you do in the accounting department, but I think we're going to really love what you do in the sales department. So I dabbled in both sides, and then I kind of crossed over and utilized my experience in real estate plus my foundation in accounting to actually come up with the best possible scenario. So it worked out for the best.
Wow, it's incredible. I can feel that you really have that deep in you, and you were able to kind of combine both of your talents and gifts, which makes you now an amazing and incredible expert in what you do once again. So see, life sometimes makes things happen the right way. I love that for you. And I wanted to ask you also, were there any early experiences growing up that shaped your relation with money, security, or independence?
That's a really good question. So going back to my mom, who was kind of like the centerpiece of my childhood, back then there was no cell phone. So when she used to leave in her Volvo station wagon to go on her appointments, we didn't know when my mom was going to be home. It wasn't like we could communicate by an email or a text. And I had two younger brothers. And my dad was a blue collar worker. So he used to come home from work hungry and tired. So I kind of took over the role of taking care of the little brothers and cooking and cleaning and kind of observing. And basically I was, in hindsight, like raising my brothers and in some degree running the household. My mom was making probably 3/4 of the household income and was able to put all four of us through college, private college, all four children. My dad, as a construction worker, was making very, very little. Yeah. So I saw how much my mom was able to accomplish, and I was really proud of the fact that she was able to give so much to her family.
I love this story. I love it. First of all, because there is a woman in the center of the financial income of the family, which is not always the stories that we hear. Not only that, but she also was able to seize the opportunity to improve the situation of her family. And I live for that. I live for that kind of decisions that women are making every day that really takes them out of this very specific box where everybody likes to put them and say, all right, I'm not going to count on a man to make things happen. I see that I'm good at this. I can make money with this, and I'm going to go and do it. And it snowballed directly to you because now you are independent and you feel strong that you can, once again, she can rely on you. You can take care of your family. And you see also the efforts that your family has put into providing for you guys. It's an incredible situation. I love that.
Yes. And, at the time, most families, the man was the breadwinner. And my dad could have pulled our family, but we would not have all went to college with no student loans or had big elaborate weddings. I mean, my mom was really instrumental in paying for all the extra things and all the advantages we had in our life. And I remember her saying that she always wanted us to have more than what she had growing up. And she didn't have the choice to go to college. So she was able to grant us this freedom to continue our education with her career path, which later, influenced me as well.
I love this story. Did you always imagine yourself becoming a leader in finance, or did that path reveal itself unexpectedly to you?
I think it really revealed itself unexpectedly. I've always been a leader of sorts, so to speak. For whatever reason, I don't know, it's a certain je ne sais quoi, right, that certain people have. How do you become a leader? Like, what draws people to want to listen to what you have to say or follow what you're doing? But I remember even being in college, and we had what they used to call the quads, where there was 4 bedrooms and 2 in each. And I was like the leader of our complex. And I remember like they would rely on me. It's like, what are we going to eat? And we don't have any food, and there's, no money for groceries. And I always was the person who could figure things out for other people. I think a lot of that falls back to me taking care of my little brothers when I was a young girl myself. I think it was a forced skill set that I learned is just figure it out.
I appreciate how you portray this character that you have as a quality, because a lot of people sometimes they tend to deplore that they didn't get to have the childhood, innocent childhood they deserve. And I feel that in what you're saying is this helped me go through life and be the best I can be, and I love how you're sharing that with us.
1,000,000%. It was definitely a blessing, not a curse. And I think, like you said, to your point, some people get jaded and they get upset that they didn't necessarily have the exact path that they envisioned for themselves. It's like a Disney, illusion of what a childhood should be. But
Yeah.
I couldn't be more grateful that I was blessed with these leadership skills that derived from me taking care of my little brothers at a young age.
Exactly. I feel really the same way. I think that maybe because I'm an immigrant and we do get a little more responsibility, we are not as protected, I would say, maybe. We face reality maybe a little earlier. So what I'm trying to say is I don't feel like I missed out. I feel like every obstacle made me resilient. And this resilience is really what gets you through life, because it's not linear. You are going to face obstacles, and it's how you are going to be able to overcome these obstacles that is going to define your success, really. Yeah.
I agree 100%. I feel grateful for any challenge or less than perfect scenario. I see that all as a gift because it's your attitude towards these scenarios that shape you. And I think that the earlier that you can, face adversity and realize that you have choices of your actions and your attitude, and your outcome will be contingent on that, not that what you were up against, but how you faced it and how you addressed it.
I love it. So I wanted to add also something else. You spent 36 years in banking and you built a career while raising children as a single mom. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. So I have two beautiful adult children. They're in their 30s now. And I could say of all my accolades and accomplishments, raising my two children alone, financially, logistically, and otherwise, was absolutely my best accomplishment and my hardest task to say the least. It's one thing to raise your family, but it's another thing to really put the energy and the effort to make sure that they have college education and that they didn't. Again, I made sure they graduated with no student loans, and there were things that were important to me. I adopted very early on with a commission-only job and two children. A failure is not an option attitude. I did not want my kids to live where all the other divorced kids lived in a condo. I wanted to live in the single family house in a neighborhood where there was all families living. I thought it was important for my kids to believe in family and believe in marriage. So I didn't want to surround them with, people who had broken families. And it wasn't easy. 2008, we had a banking crisis. It was a really tough time. And I remember working at night, doing side jobs or doing anything I could to make sure I kept my children in that house. But I did it. And at the end of the day, when I look back and I realized, really how challenging and difficult things were at the time, life feels easy now. I feel like I'm skating on the top. Making sure that my kids were raised in a good environment was the most important thing for me.
I admire every woman out there who decides to start a family, because it's a journey. Nowadays, we don't have the village we used to have. We don't have the parents, the grandparents who are going to take care of the children while we go working, and it's a challenge. Having children, it's a challenge. And if you add on top of everything else that you're a single mom, a working single mom, wow. I mean, out in front of everything you've accomplished while still being a mother and while providing for your children and making sure that all their needs are met. It's incredible, really.
Both my kids graduated. They were varsity athletes. My daughter was a Girl Scout until she graduated. They were both, and they both still are really nice people. But funny enough, my son's an entrepreneur, and my son started his business when he was 13 years old. He watched me and he really, really observed. And I watched him take the skill set that I learned from my mom and now to watch my 32-year-old son implementing things. And he's really doing amazing. It's just, to see the legacy
Yes.
continue. It's really beautiful.
Well, see, again, he was inspired by you. And I feel that it's the same here with me sitting with you when you tell your story. I think that we inspire by, showing up for ourselves and showing up for your family. Most of the time, it's not about having all the promotions or the big salary or things that might seem superficial. There is value in showing up and being authentic, and being hardworking. I love that. I wish we can bring that back because I feel that now people have lost their way a little bit. And we are going to speak about also finances, right? Because I feel that now finances have become such a difficult subject for people. You spoke about your son being an entrepreneur. I think people now are afraid to show up for themselves financially, learn about the improvement that can be made in their finances, and even just, put themselves in the right rooms where they can learn about improving their finances. This is also why I was super happy to have you here today. But before we dive into that specific subject, I wanted to ask you also, when we spoke last time, you said your philosophy is collaboration over competition. What moment or experience proved to you that this mindset changes everything?
Well, going back again to my children, so I didn't have a strong support system, meaning my family wasn't available to babysit or help, or
Right.
so I was kind of on my own, and I was observing the way men were doing things. Men were kind of helping each other out and showing up for each other. If a guy got a ticket, one of his buddies would call the police officer and ask him if he could help him. But I noticed that women weren't really being so supportive and helpful to each other. They were being more competitive. And I really noticed that, and I really felt that. And I made a decision that it would be very important for me to only spend my time with other collaborative, secure, confident people, not insecure people who are vindictive and just by nature. So I started a national women's organization called the National Women's In Network. And I started by just inviting like 4 or 5 women. Eventually, I had chapters going through the United States. And the entire premise of the group was you have to show up with a collaborative mindset, which means you're not there to compete with the first meeting, I invited 3 other bankers and I sat in the middle of them. And I showed the other ladies by example, I'm going to show you that I can get a lot further by collaborating with people who do what I do for a living than I would ever fighting against them or pushing them back. So I adopted that mindset early on, and I actually published a book called The Winning Connection, which is also about the mindset of being collaborative. And honestly, I think that if some people could just shift their attitudes ever so slightly from being a go-getter to being a go-giver and be willing to share what you know with other people, then you can collaborate. And that's where the magic really occurs.
So I didn't know you were an author. I had no idea. I will link the book in the description down below, so you can go ahead and purchase the book. It's definitely something I'm going to look into. It's incredible that you decided to go over and beyond just putting women together in the right rooms, and you decided to start an organization, basically a networking event where women could actually collaborate. Was there a moment in your life that made you decide that you had to do more than collaborate with women, but really teach them how to do it?
That's a great point. The book wasn't really like if I was going to write a book today, which I am working on a couple of projects, it would be a much different book. This book was more or less like a handbook, like to say these are kind of some guidelines on how this is going to work. It's the secret sauce, so to speak. And, to decide, to make a decision, are you into this to actually really want to make a difference? Not by just making more transactions or making more money, but adjusting your mindset so that it will open up for all new possibilities. Because collaborative people and powerful people, and powerful not being by your title or people who are able to accomplish what they put their mind to, as being a powerful person, they're all collaborators. None of them are competitive. So it was a mindset, and I kind of used, this as a measuring stick as to whether the women would be a good fit for the organization or not. And believe it or not, some of us are still very close today. This is like 20 years later, and I still have very close working relationships with a lot of the women who were in the group.
I really agree with this. I think that even women, we don't realize it, but we used to have this collaboration back, before society looked like what it looks like today. We used to gather, we used to exchange information, we used to help each other intellectually, at home, emotionally. I think there was a lot more support, but somehow by trying to survive in a patriarchal society and losing this relationship we had, it looks like we had to become as good as men, and we forgot to do it together and uplift each other on the way to success.
I agree. And I think, again, going back to the beginning of time, there was one queen, right? One princess. Go to the Miss America contest. There's 50
That's
contestants and there's only one that gets the crown, right? The rest of them, it's kind of like, get out of my way. You're potentially messing with my opportunity to succeed. But that's not true. There's definitely enough for all of us to go around, right? And I think when you have that mindset that this is my referral source, listen, in the world of real estate, I get most of my business from realtors. And there's a lot of bankers who, if you ever heard them speaking offline, they speak about realtors like they own them, like they're humans. That's my realtor. And I said, listen, if the realtor wants to give the referral to another banker, it's a free world. They'll give the referral to whomever
That's
they
funny.
want. You don't have ownership in your referral sources. But I think a lot of people get very insecure and very protective like that, which is why their businesses ultimately fail and they miss the mark 100% on that one piece alone.
Yes. I can see how. Back to the meaty part of this podcast, which is basically finances and home ownership. I wanted to ask you, in your decades of working with clients, what common emotional barrier do you see women struggle with when it comes to finances and home ownership?
So funny. I just closed a loan this week, and the woman has a very powerful job. She's a superintendent of a school district in a county. She's a really good, well-paying, and a very respected job. And when it was coming time to buy the house, she did all the work. She's the only one I contacted. She met the inspector. She met the attorney. Then I found out she was also moving her parents in with her. And I realized I never heard from, spoke to, interacted in any regard with her husband during this whole transaction, right? And at the very, very end, I was talking to her about, her final closing instructions, and she just started crying. And I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, and I said, "I get it. The whole thing is on her back, right?" So I think for women, there's either you're in a scenario where you're with a man or a relationship that's very ultra controlling, where you have nothing to say about the money, or you're in charge of everything and you don't get a break and you don't get any help. So I think to find like a healthy relationship with money for a woman, and for her to take this on, first of all, there's a lot of male resistance, especially in the older generation, where they didn't want the woman to be involved with that at all. So, in trying to maintain, your decorum, and you wanted to, maintain your, attractiveness with the opposite sex. I think a woman coming across like she's too bossy or, she's got too much control. I think a lot of men are very threatened by that potentially. So I think a woman will even when she is very interested in learning, pull back a little because they don't want to give the outward appearance that they're a boss babe because it will detract, certain types of men. So I find that women get very confused about what their role is with money, right? And men have been taught from the beginning of time that they're going to be the breadwinner and they're going to be responsible. So they kind of have a better relationship with the whole position. But women are kind of tossed in. I envision it like a dryer where it's tossing around and bouncing around. They're hitting the wall. They're not really sure what their role is supposed to be. And so therefore, they don't really take a position, which is the worst place to be.
If you could give them one tip in this conversation, one advice regarding a woman who is financially curious or just want to maybe understand what it means to become a homeowner for her finances, but still is shy and doesn't know who to call, what would you tell her?
Well, I wish I could split myself into a million pieces so I could be available to every single woman who wanted to have this conversation, because I pride myself in getting down in the ditches with my clients, who ultimately will become in most cases friends, and really help them, understand and dig deep. Unfortunately, there's a lot of push 1, push 6, AI, no person on the other end of the line who really wants to hear your story or talk to you about anything really for that matter in this world that we live in. I think that one of the biggest attributes to my success is that I listen and I put myself here so that I can actually hear what my clients need and what they want and how I can be of service. But I think that that's a very, very rare thing in today's world. And I see that it's a reason for frustration for consumers, but also just for a lot of misinformation. And this is going to kind of sound like it doesn't make sense because we're on a podcast and I'm going to be telling you, you can't really always believe everything you hear on the internet, right? I'll give you an example. Recently, the Feds dropped the interest rates. And when the Feds drop the interest rates, what they're doing is they're reducing the rates on short-term debt, which is your credit cards and your car payments. That's not a mortgage rate reduction. The mortgage interest rates come, for the most part, from the bond market. So, but I went on to Facebook or Instagram and I saw post after post after post from realtors saying, it's a great time to buy. The interest rates on the mortgage just went down 0.25%. And I'm thinking, but that's not what happened at all. So this is misinformation, which is worse than no information at all, right? So I feel like it's kind of like a WebMD thing where you could back into getting the information you want online. So people will call me and they'll say, oh, I read about this program and it does this and it does that. And they're telling me like, well, the selling points, and I can tell that they researched it online. And I said, but what you looked up online missed the 80% of downside of the product, which number one is going to make you not be interested in it right off the cuff. So I think in summary, getting the information is really important, but where you and who you get it from is even more important. And that's our biggest conundrum. Where do we get this information?
Do you feel that maybe women should, me, if I could say one thing, I'd say call a mortgage lender, and call a few so you can cross compare the information and see where you feel comfortable the most. And I'm going to even add, the relationship you are going to build with your mortgage lender is very important. A lot of people focus on realtors because they have the impression that this is the person they're going to spend the most time with, especially because, during the home search. But I would say your finances, and this is what people don't do, you have to start by understanding your finances before to get on Zillow and start looking at houses and start building a relationship with a realtor, because the realtor has no power over what you can and cannot buy. And I feel that sometimes people tend to get desperate or and frustrated because they're not finding something in their price range, or they don't understand exactly why they're not getting the loan they deserve. Very often, I often hear, "Yeah, but I pay already $2,700 in rent, so I'm supposed to be able to get the same, as a loan." And I always tell them it doesn't work that way. But the thing is, you really need to find a mortgage lender first and build a relationship with them, understand your finances, and then get outside and start looking for a property. And yeah.
I believe that every person, maybe you're not lucky enough to have somebody in your life that acts as, your private advisor, so to speak. But I think everybody should get one trusted advisor, meaning an accountant, a realtor, a mortgage banker. I've been like third generation now. I'm helping the grandchild of a couple of my original clients.
Wow.
But having this trusted advisor, the benefit of that, it's not just a relationship with the trusted advisor. The trusted advisor has all the contacts on who they trust that they're going to share with you. And if you really trust your trusted advisor, whomever it is, it could be a doctor, it could be your financial advisor, your accountant, your realtor, your banker, okay? If you trust them, ask them, who should I go to for a mortgage? You tell me who the person is. Who should I go to for a realtor, right? Because just going online and choosing the realtor that has the cutest Instagram videos or content is definitely not the best decision.
Yeah.
We are all being marketed all the time, which is just, the way that it is. But I think that follow the dots, right? So find somebody that you like, somebody that understands you. And then the chances are that the person that they're going to refer you to, don't even question it. Just check them out. Call them, see what they have to say. If they can give you 2 or 3 names, I think that's the best way for you to build and then create a portfolio of your trusted advisors. So when you need them, you have somebody on speed dial to call.
I totally agree. Don't start looking at the last minute for important people. Very often we wait to have a problem before to start calling attorneys or lawyers or, specialists and this and that. And this is always the time where you don't find anybody capable of helping you. Don't put yourself in that situation. Be on top of your finances on a regular, just because this is what you do every day. You handle money. Money is your money, comes and goes. It's credited, debited all the time. You want to understand where it's going and who can help you just ease up these transactions and eventually advise you when it comes to a home purchase, which is one of the biggest transaction you're going to make probably in your life. So yeah, I wanted to ask you about the misconceptions about starting the journey toward home ownership.
Okay, so this is probably the most rewarding part of my job, right? So I do people who are buying their 10th home, investors, but I love first-time home buyers because I like to help people believe in the power of their possibilities. There's so many times when people will start the conversation. I know this is far-fetched and you can tell that they might be embarrassed because they don't. The bottom line is, it is a lot. There's a lot of money that you're going to be spending. When I started in mortgages, how many years ago, we didn't have credit scores. We didn't even have credit reports. I mean, we eventually got credit reports, but they had no scoring system on them. And now we have credit scores. So a lot of things have evolved where there's things that are being counted against you that are so definitive, so that if you have a marginal credit score, people are embarrassed. So they may never buy a house just because they're afraid to have a conversation with somebody about it, right? And that's crazy because without spending a lot of money and without investing in getting credit repair, I can help 95% of consumers significantly repair their credit without spending any money. I can give them some simple things that they can do at home. It might take 6 months, it might take 6 weeks, but I can help. And they don't have to spend a lot of money. So yes, for me, it's the misconception of my credit needs to be perfect. No, it doesn't. We can do mortgages with a 580 credit score. And there's new news on the cusp that we're not even going to need credit scores to qualify for mortgages in the future. That is also a kind of a slippery slope because people are hearing that and their takeaway is, it doesn't matter that my credit's bad. That's not what the new law says. The law says the score doesn't matter, but the history still does. So they're still going to be looking at the history, and just because they're not going to be discriminating of the score doesn't mean that they're going to accept your credit history. If you haven't paid anybody on time all year, why would you expect a bank to give you $500,000 if you're not paying the minimum monthly payment on your $25 credit card? So helping people overcome these misnomers and obstacles and letting them feel confident enough to take that first step, to me, is the most critical step in the whole process.
It's funny because actually, I told you I'm from Belgium, and we don't have credit score. We don't work that way. We obviously have the history of are we good payers or not, but banks are going to rely mostly on your income, and they're going to rely on your ability to pay back that loan. So they're gonna ask you for a health report about your health just to check that you are in good health past a certain age. It used to be 40 years old, but maybe it has changed now, but it will ask you to have a co-signer. They're just worried about, are you going to be able to pay back the loan? They're not worried about what you did in the past, which is a little bit discriminatory, I think, here in the United States. And I'm surprised that for a country that is so open-minded and against discrimination, credit score has such a major presence, in basically deciding if you will become a homeowner or not.
You nailed it, it's now that they're changing that scoring mechanism. But believe it or not, even when being a banker, I have to maintain a certain credit score. Now, let's just say I'm making up a scenario. I was married and I came home and my husband emptied the house out and took off with his secretary and left me with no money in the checking account. And I couldn't pay my bills for 3 months or whatever the time was. Does that mean that I shouldn't be able to be a licensed mortgage banker? But the credit score discrimination, they've taken credit reports and they've taken a white woman, age 32, and compared her score to, let's just say, a black man. I'm just making up different scenarios, and where you live. So if you're in New York versus if you're in Kansas, if you're 43 years old versus if you're 80, the scoring comes out different. They have the exact same profile. So you have 3 cards, you've had 3 cards for 3 years. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to be exactly the same. But they found that there's got to be something in that algorithm that we're not seeing, that they're not telling us. I think it's male, female is in there, because they're showing that men's credit scores. And when they compare it to a woman with the exact same profile, his score is slightly higher than hers. So I've been waiting too for somebody to say, show us what's in that algorithm that calculates the credit score. We want to know the exact equation.
Right.
If there's anything in there for male, female, or where you live, why should you get a better credit score if you live in Kansas than New Jersey?
That's shocking.
Yes. But so I think that they've been barraged because we're discriminated against for the cost of our insurance. Some physicians won't take you as a new patient if your credit score is under a certain number. Like, there's a lot of things that you don't realize that you're being discriminated or rewarded with your credit score.
And you said that they decided that they will completely remove that credit score regarding the points, not the history again. When are they planning on doing it? I wasn't aware.
Yeah, they're planning on doing it next year.
Next year. Okay.
Yes, and I'm sure, and that so that like right now, like right around the corner. And I'm sure that the catalyst behind this is lawsuits, and rightfully so. So looking at the history, great. Also, too, a credit score doesn't necessarily tell a true story. So I've seen people who have had late payments on their mortgage have a 7 something credit score. And I've had seen somebody who never had a late payment ever have a 500, 580 or something like that. So sometimes the algorithm just it doesn't translate properly. So the scoring needed to go away.
I'm beyond happy to hear that. Really, it's like honestly, I had my doubts, but once again, I didn't grow up in this system, so I had to learn about it. But the more I was learning as a new person in the United States, when I arrived, I remember I couldn't comprehend exactly what was wrong with it, but I promise you, my guts were telling me this credit score situation is not right. I don't feel that it's improving the situation. And I got the opportunity to compare because I come from another country. And I'm really happy that this is getting removed, really. And regarding a story, a real life example of someone who thought that home ownership was impossible. I think you mentioned last time you helped a teacher who's making around 80K buy a 3-unit building and live rent free. Do you want to share more about that?
Yes, I would. I mean, this is where, like I said, this is where the magic happens. So he's on he has a good job. He's a teacher. He's not doing great, but he's a stable job, very young man. And he said, I want to get into real estate sooner than later. So with 3.5% down, you could get an FHA mortgage. And it turns out that his credit score was not great and he didn't have post-closing liquidity. But what he did have going for him is where he was looking in the boroughs, that the rent for the second and the third unit was so high that it carries the cost of the building. So here the school teacher is now living rent-free in the house. He's accumulated some equity. The property appreciated a lot. We're cashing out of this building, which now he's got 3 rental units and buying another unit, buying another building, whether it's his primary residence or maybe he'll buy a second income producing property. But yeah, if with the right banker working with you, we can qualify you with loans. They're called DSCR loans. It's where the loan actually services itself through the rental. So you don't even have to have any income and qualify if it's the right building.
That's one of my favorite loans. It really does. It's not easy to find a property that can carry its own cost and have was it 1.6? Okay. Yeah. You still have to do the right math and find the right property. But when you realize that you're able to purchase a property 100% based on what the property already produced, it's mind blowing that not more people are involved in real estate, and especially women. This is why, once again, I was excited to have you here, because I really wanted people to realize that it's not for the elite or for people who are great at mathematics or for people who understand finances better. It's all about finding a good deal, right? You can make the magic happen. And guess what? Inflation can go up and your salary won't go up. And you will end up going from middle class to maybe lower middle class. And then if you are a landlord, well, guess what? You'll never lose your money. It's still going to increase over time. Demographics is always going to grow. It's a safe spot. Even if you don't make it your main stream of income, having passive income is such a major, great move to make in your life. Like, I don't understand why people are not just like jumping and seizing the opportunity.
Because fear. I mean, fear either motivates you or it paralyzes you. And I personally am motivated by fear. I don't want to be that proverbial squirrel who's trying to contemplate and going back and forth by the road and then gets hit by a car because it didn't make a decision, right? So I agree with you. And, you don't have to have all your ducks lined up perfectly in a row. If you're working with the right team of professionals, attorneys, bankers, realtors, somebody who's going to believe in the power of your possibilities, they're going to show you how to do it and make it work. So yes, you can purchase a home. You don't have to have perfect credit. You don't even have to have really healthy tax returns. I've got other programs where we use the deposits going into your bank in lieu of a tax return. So there are some alternative, solutions for people who don't have everything set up, perfectly, so to speak. And, it's a great time for us to potentially brainstorm on how we're going to set you up for success next year. How we file the 2025 return could either be the key to start your engine or a roadblock that will make you have to sit out another year. So having these conversations early on so that you can prepare is always really helpful.
I completely agree with that. And I wanted to ask you also the key steps every person needs to understand before starting their journey.
The key steps every person needs to have. Well, I would say be honest and be real, right? So I have people call me and they go, well, I want to know what the maximum I can qualify for. And I'll say, okay, I can do that. But before we do that, we need to have a come to Jesus conversation about what's the maximum that you feel comfortable paying for a mortgage, right? Owning a home is the cornerstone of all financial stability. So we want to get you into a house. You know what your plans are for your future. If you're going to start a family, is one of the two partners going to take off from work and on some maternity leave type of thing. So there'll only be one income coming into the household for a certain period of time. It's usually harder for people when they have young children with daycare costs and such. So what all those extras are. Be really honest with your lender and tell them, this is the most I really want to spend. The other big mistake that I see young people do, and it's something that after I have a conversation, most of them will adjust. And I commend the people who are maximizing what they can put into their retirements until I don't. Meaning, I do a lot of New York City police officers and firemen, and a lot of them will maximize their contributions into their retirement account. So let's just say that your check was supposed to be $10,000 for the month, and I'm just being theoretical, and you're only bringing home $4,500 because you're doing a great job and putting $2,000 a month into your retirement. Well, you have plenty of time to save for your retirement, and the house, the roof over your family's head is also a retirement asset, right? So if you were not putting the money into your retirement or you were taking the money out to go on a trip or to go shopping, I would say that's a terrible idea. Don't do it. But if you're going to take that money and either stop putting money in as contributions for a year or two so that you can maximize your savings, or if you're going to withdraw from your 401k or 203b or whatever plan that you're associated with, and you're going to shift that money into the roof over your family's head, which coincidentally is another retirement asset, which will appreciate a lot faster than your retirement account ever will. It's a much better big picture decision. I see a lot of young people telling me that their take-home pay isn't adequate to pay a mortgage. And when I see what they're stockpiling away, I realize they need to have a little bit more balance in how they look at it.
So this is also something that you do with your clients. You advise them and you explain to them how they can capitalize better on their income and how they can save and move their money in a smart way so they can become homeowners soon.
And I mean, the interest on your mortgage is tax deductible. If you buy a multi-unit, you've got a lot more tax deductions. I help a lot of them raise their withholdings. And instead of waiting until April or May to get their refund from the IRS, which is basically getting your own money back interest-free, makes no sense at all. I always encourage people to raise their withholdings, bring home more of their check, use their own money to make money. Don't let the government hold it interest-free and give it back to you in 16 months and then be happy about it. It's the biggest travesty, I think, for a lot of young W-2 wage earners to get caught in that trap.
So would you advise to a first-time homeowner to not buy their dream home and to squeeze a little longer and rather purchase a multi-family unit?
If they can, yes. And the reason for that is, number one, you can kind of get your training wheels on about home ownership, right? When it helps lighten the load with your monthly payment. But number two is that you probably will end up holding on to that as, like I said, another addition to your retirement account. And as you stated before, passive income. So, I know a lot of people who just don't work anymore. They own two or three buildings, and that's their job, to just do property management, and they love, their life doing that. Other people just supplement their income doing it, but absolutely, yes.
That's some food for thought. I worked with a lot of home buyers who wanted to purchase the dream home right off the back. Very often I was like, are you sure you don't have any children yet? You might want to squeeze a little longer and the reward will be only greater. But not everybody want to do that. But I think that millennial people and Gen Z should absolutely tap into the multi-families that are available, especially if you're near a big city, because the profit is going to be amazing and you won't repent, really. I also wanted to ask you, mortgages and insurance are so closely connected. Do you have any insurance? I mean, it's like the one that you prefer, insurance companies that you like partnering with?
What I said earlier about going to your trusted partner, whoever it might be, having that one person. I have insurance agents that are amazing, and I would give a different recommendation potentially for a lot of different clients, meaning one is for very high net worth clients. They use Chubb as their carrier and some of the bigger, and then I have great commercial insurance partners that I work with. And then I have great residential. I have my favorite insurance residential. We had a client, unfortunately, who had a fire in his house several years ago, and my client called me and said, the insurance agent got out of bed and stood on the side of the road with my client all night and told him exactly what to do next, as he was watching this catastrophic event. The right insurance agent is make or break, because anybody can put together a policy and say this one's cheaper than this one. It's what's in this contract from your insurance that's going to make it expensive or inexpensive. It's not the price of the premium. So what coverage you get really, really, really does matter. And a really good insurance agent isn't just going to try to raise your deductibles to change your premium, but they're going to try to do things that will be more insurance friendly. Like, for example, if you have an Airbnb, a property that you Airbnb, to have cameras outside, or things of that nature that they'll give you credits for safety.
The reason why I wanted to ask you this question is because a lot of people now are struggling with their insurances. First of all, it just it increased a lot, which changes the monthly payments. And some of the insurance companies completely withdrew from certain areas. So it has become almost impossible to have a mortgage. So I was curious to know if now you were feeling that as well. You were feeling that some people just didn't take the step of becoming homeowner because of that issue, or if you still had some reliable insurance company you could trust.
I do. I'm licensed in Florida, as you know, and there's a lot of what we call self-insured people here, which means you don't have insurance. Self-insured, meaning you're going to cover it. So you're living in a $3, $4, $5 million property with no insurance, with hurricanes looming. To me, that's just crazy. I just don't know how people can put their head to the pillow. The flip side of it is these insurance policies are $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year for some of these policies. So, something's going to have to give, and someone's going to have to figure out some way to make this work better, because there is a lot of exposure. And the problem is, when there is a catastrophic event and the people can't rebuild, it hurts everybody in the community, so they'll have to figure out something. And we do have to have some sort of new policy change with regard to insurance in the country at a national level, I believe.
That's good to know. Thank you for updating us on that. A lot of, I think, the East Coast and the West Coast, and actually the Midwest as well now is getting a lot of climate change that affects every homeowner. And obviously, insurances are the first one to, like I said, pull the plug. And it has become a real issue for homeowners on top of interest rates. So thank you. I wanted to ask you also, when people say it's not a good time to buy, what's your perspective on that?
I think that that is the worst statement that you could ever make. It's always a good time to buy. So when you're talking about interest rates, let's talk about that. The rates from several years ago, 3%, 2%, my own mortgage was at 1.5%. I mean, that's not a real rate. That wasn't a real market rate. That was under market rate. We will never see that again. It should never be that low again. It's actually very bad for our economy. So we don't even want to wish that unless, you want doom and gloom for the economy of our country. A healthy interest rate is right where we are now. When I bought my first mortgage, it was at 14%. I've closed mortgages at 22%. I've closed mortgages at 18% with 12 points. 12 points, if you really think about that. So the interest rates to me right now are very low. Interest rates in the 6% range is a healthy interest rate. People are paying on their credit cards 25 to 32% and don't bat an eyelash at whipping their credit card out and putting it down for their Amazon shipments and everything else. Car payments, I look at credit reports and I see people paying $2,000 a month to drive a car. It's not even like it's bougie or anything. It's just a car because of the rates, So to see the car rates and the credit card rates come down, I think is huge. To have consumers not using their credit cards as much as they do and actually being a little bit more mindful about buying things when you can afford them, I think is a really big topic that needs to be addressed. It's like an instant gratification crisis that we have, I think, about not saving up for the things that we want, right? But I think it's an amazing time to buy a house. If not now, what are you waiting for? As the rates, if they do come down, the purchase prices are just going to go up. It's a basic supply of economic, a law of economics, right? Supply and demand. So, if there's going to be less product to buy, the price of the product that you're going to buy is going to be higher. So when the rates go down, there's going to be more consumers competing against you. The price of the house is going to go up. You have to look at the monthly payment. You should not isolate one piece of the component and say this makes it a bad time. I think it's an amazing time to buy a house. And if you're renting, if you want to just put a match to your money every month, it's just exactly what you're doing. So I've got so many phone calls from people who were displaced time and time again from their landlord. And I can't imagine having to keep picking up your stuff, putting in a truck, figure out where you're going to go next. There's no security in not being able to know that this is my home.
I 100% agree with that. A lot of people do not realize that by renting, you're also at the mercy of an increase in your rent. And sometimes it can increase all the way to, at least here in New Jersey, $600 per month. And when you can't afford it and you're not prepared to handle such a high increase in your rent, what do? Like you said, you have to keep on moving. And sometimes your children go to school where you live. So now you have to figure out how you are going to drop them off there and then go back to work in the city and vice versa. So there is no protection in being a tenant.
And to your point, you go out now, you're searching for another apartment. There's no apartments. Mm-hmm. So now what do? And, you see this epidemic of people who are becoming homeless people. They're not real homeless people. They're people who just haven't been able to secure adequate housing. It's a sad epidemic. You see a lot, we make jokes about living in your parents' basement, but for a lot of people, it's the only viable option that they could get an apartment that's within commuting distance of their job that they can afford. So at least if you own the house, you know what your mortgage payment's going to be and you can plan accordingly. No one's going to throw you out and you're not going to be displaced.
That is so true, really. You've helped also many people find money they didn't even realize they had. We spoke about that a little bit. I wanted to ask you, what is the most overlooked source of down payment funds?
Well, other than the proverbial, I've got a gift from mom and dad, which, you know, parents are most cases going to be leaving their inheritance, their estate to their family. And for me, like as a mother, it would make me feel a lot better to know that my children were utilizing the money while I was alive to get to see it go to good use, you know? So I know a lot of us are proud and we don't want to ask mom and dad, but we know we're going to give you the money anyway. So if I had to offer my kids $20,000 or $30,000 and say, here, use this towards closing costs or something, that could make a huge difference in their life.
Yeah.
Most parents are really, agreeable to that. The second source is, and to my point that I made earlier, is the retirement account. Most accounts you can take against your own money as a loan. So there's no tax consequences, which means because you put the money into your account without paying income tax, you don't have to pay tax on it if you withdraw it as a loan, which is great. So it remains tax-free money. And instead of having that money in there accumulating a rate of return of 1% a year, if you're lucky, if you purchase a home, your rate of return could be 50%. I mean, some of the appreciation stories that I've seen with my clients are crazy how much money they've made. I bought a property in Florida, and it went from 480,000 to $1.5 million in 4 years.
Wow.
So where are you going to get that ROI on your retirement account? You're not. So you can make the right investment, and there's great opportunity. Definitely should consider taking from your retirement account, because you can make a lot more for your retirement portfolio by doing something like that and making a smart real estate move than letting it just sit there.
Such a good advice. Thank you for that. It really speaks volume about the all the benefits of investing in real estate. What lifestyle tweaks have you seen produce real savings without making people feel deprived?
Well, let's go back again to that instant gratification generation that we live, and we're all kind of guilty of it. I even noticed myself. I'll call like customer service. You push the button, you don't get what you want right away. You push it again and again. Like the social media, we're just so used to pushing it and then getting our needs satisfied, and it's a very slippery slope. It's a very scary thought that we're just getting wired to want that. So all of our needs, I want the new iPhone. I want, my Starbucks pumpkin spice. When people add up what they just spend in coffee in a year, if you just took the money that you spent in Starbucks and put it into your house account, you could have a down payment for a house at the end of the year. It's crazy. So if I was going to give you advice, I would say, look at your spending habits and look at, what's the non-negotiable. Maybe, you're like, listen, I'm not going to give up my coffee, but I will definitely keep this phone unless I have an emergency, or I'll get an insurance policy on my phone. So if my phone breaks, I don't have to buy another one. I mean, what are the new phones? Like $1,300, $1,700, I mean, with an FHA mortgage, 3.5% down, you could have a down payment. That's 3 iPhones, So I would just say most people don't realize how much money they waste. And they don't, because they don't really look at how much money they spend. There's an app called Rocket Spending. And, I installed it on my own phone because I'm curious and I want to see how it works if I want to recommend it to my client. And it's great. It gives you your up-to-date credit scores. It tells you what you spent in the month. It shows you what categories. Sometimes when you look at it and you really face it and really look at it, you say, wow, I could have done a much better job. But not looking at it and not facing it is not going to get you anywhere. So, pull your head out of the sand and really take a hard look at what your spending habits are and be willing to make minor adjustments. You'll save a lot of money.
Such a good tip, really. It's and people don't realize they often, for example, I would say maybe complain about big companies making a lot of money, but companies actually hire people to track their expenses versus, their profits, and all of that is an absolute. It's all planned. It's all meticulously studied. There is no money that's going to waste. And if there is a way to improve their revenues, they will do it, which we don't do because we are very emotional in our everyday life. So we have nothing in place to track, indeed, what you said, our expenses. So I love that tip. And we are almost at the end of this podcast, and it went by so fast, really. I want to circle back to also the what you did for women, and you've done so much for women empowerment. I would like to ask you what the journey looks like for you today of empowering women.
Wow. Well, that's a great question. So I'm in a few networking groups, excuse me, and I've noticed that a lot of the younger members of the group, they're so drawn to me. It's like a magnetic draw. They come, the younger ones, they know, like if you're receptive to want to grow and to change and to be a better version of yourself, you usually are drawn to people who have that similar energy and that mindset, right? So for me, I always take that first step and will always offer to anyone that I meet, or especially young ladies that I see that are struggling, to tell them, listen, you can call me anytime for any reason. I'll always help you any way I can. And I actually really do, and they actually really do call me. To accumulate all this information and all this knowledge and not share it, then that would be really terrible for me, because my true legacy is sharing what I know with others and helping them grow. That's the whole reason I'm here. So I will never stop in that journey of trying to shed light on other people and helping them believe in the power of possibilities. I'll do it by example. First, by showing them that as a single woman with 2 children, that I was able to create, a beautiful life for myself, financial freedom, that it's all possible if you're willing to adjust your thought process and your attitude potentially, and most importantly, connect to people who will help you rise to your occasion. It's the most important component. So I think that that's always going to be my legacy and always going to be my journey, is to help as many people as I possibly can while I'm here.
Oh, that's very inspiring, really. And how can people reach out to you? So, regarding mortgage, and for women who are looking to have a session of mentorship with somebody who succeeded in her life and is still giving to this day. So, once again, we can all rise together. I love that about you. Tell us more about how we can reach out to you.
Accessible. I give everybody my cell phone number. It's published everywhere. It's 845-222-8270. I've had that number forever. I always suggest text me and then we'll set up time, because I am on the phone a lot. I'm available 7 days a week. I'm on the phone sometimes at 6:30 in the morning, and I'll end my day at 10 o'clock. I try to really extend myself to people. Like I said, my own legacy is relying on my ability to continue to do this. So it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a selfless thing that I can do to keep my legacy alive.
Thank you again, Laura, for being with us today, sitting with us and sharing so much. It was a true pleasure having you here. And I loved our conversation. And I'm really hoping that, once again, whoever is drawn to communicate with you about becoming a homeowner, or if you are a woman and you want to learn more about everything that you can do to thrive, then hopefully they'll make sure to reach out to you. And I will link all the information to reach out to you in the description down below.
Much for the opportunity. And yes, I'm very sincere. I'm very happy to speak to anybody about the roof over your head. Is the most important component of your life, right? Because if you're not happy with where you live, you're not going to like any other part of your life. So anything that I can do to be a catalyst or to help you change or grow, it's my pleasure. Please reach out to me. It's my pleasure to help you any way I can.